So in the last episode, I had said that 007's face had changed the least as Ishinomori's art style matured, which I thought was ironic since his face is directly taken from the Blackjack character Acetylene Lamp. However, since I've begun working on this episode, I actually started reading the Blackjack manga, and I discovered that many of Ishinomori's characters are directly inspired by Tezuka characters. This makes sense since Ishinomori was Tezuka's assistant for years, but I didn't realize the extent of his influence in terms of character designs until now. For example, 3 pages into Blackjack, I was introduced to Mr. Nicola, who appears to be Ishinomori's influence for 002. There are also other characters that were clearly inspired by Tezuka, but my main point was just that 007 was the only character in the manga whose appearance matched his anime counterpart. I also want to mention that his design does change far later down the line, eventually resembling his appearance in the Sunrise Toei anime. But unlike the rest of the cast, I feel like his early design was more fitting of his character. The second arc of Cyborg 009, The Assassins, begins on episode 3 of the anime and chapter 9 of the manga. The huge discrepancy in manga chapters compared to anime episodes is mostly because of the chapter that drops everyone's backstory, which was omitted from the anime so that the characters' backstories could be revealed at later points as they became more relevant to the story. This arc begins 1 month after the destruction of Black Ghost Base on Island X. Gilmore and the Cyborgs are laying low at a villa in Japan, owned by a friend of Gilmore's named Dr. Kozumi. Dr. Kozumi is portrayed as being the nicest man in the world, who lets the Cyborg stay with him because it makes him feel like he finally has a family, which is weird because he's voiced by Junpei Takaguchi, known for his over-the-top villain roles.
Mana, yo, kangai nasali. Akan talebe no akapontan dabe. Moshi wa nga hai nga sungata o misereba. Joshiko sewa olo ka den sekai no bepinsa nga kaka yotte kuru hodo no binan da tomo dabe.
Manga Kozumi is slightly different in that the reason he's letting the Cyborg stay with him is that he's working on a drug that prevents aging. A pharmaceutical company has been trying to buy the formula from Kozumi, but he doesn't believe it's ready, and says it's dangerous in its current state. This has led the company to sending goons to Kozumi's house to try and steal the formula, so the Cyborgs are essentially his bodyguards. Unlike the manga, the anime takes this opportunity to show off a bit of each Cyborg's personality, as well as the rising tension between them, as it seems each member has their own goal and agenda. 002 particularly hates how laid back everyone is, and wants to launch a counterattack on Black Ghost immediately. 004 argues that they shouldn't risk their own safety and need to wait before launching any sort of attack. 003 doesn't want to fight at all, and Joe is more concerned with why the priest who raised him was killed and the church burned to the ground. This conflict between the characters isn't in the manga. In fact, we see the Cyborgs working together, building additions to Kozumi's house to accommodate everyone. When night falls, 002 is still arguing with everyone to stop being complacent and fight, but it's clear that no one else feels the way he does. He says he's going to leave to fight Black Ghost himself when the lights go out, and 003 detects an enemy approaching their location. In the manga, 003 detects intruders, so the Cyborgs go out to stop them, and it turns out to be goons trying to steal Kozumi's formula. The Cyborgs take them out easily, and when one of the men tries to shoot Joe only to see the bullets bounce off, they all go running. However, as the men are running away, they're suddenly caught in an explosion of lightning, presumably killing them. In the anime, 003 says she only detects one intruder, provoking 002 to run out to fight them himself. The other Cyborgs go out to follow him, where they meet the first of the Assassins, 0010. Design-wise, 0010 uses the face of 007, which I've mentioned before is derived from Tezuka's Acetylene Lamp. However, he also has lines on his face that run from his eyes down his cheeks, a design Ishinomori would continue to use in characters like Van Vogt and even the manga version of Kamen Rider. The facial lines were inspired by Alfred Bester's novel The Star's My Destination, where the main character Gully Foyle has stripes on his face that are said to resemble the stripes of a tiger, hence the book receiving the title Tiger Tiger outside of the United States. I mentioned in the introduction of this series that The Star's My Destination was a huge influence for Ishinomori in creating the world of 009, but I should have elaborated on that more. The story begins with Gully Foyle, the last survivor of a merchant ship called the Nomad, having been trapped in space for 170 days. A ship called the Vorga passes Gully, but ignores his distress signal, sending him into such a severe rage that when he finally does escape, he immediately plots revenge against everyone on the ship who ignored him. On his journey for revenge, Gully alters his body, becoming a cyborg, though the book was published before the actual term cyborg existed. Foyle touched his tongue to the switchboard wired into the nerve endings of his teeth. He accelerated. Neural circuits buzzed, and every sense and response in his body was accelerated by a factor of 5. Not only was Gully's acceleration powers lifted for 009, but classism also played a large part in the story. I don't think it's a coincidence that just as Joe was raised in an orphanage where he was mistreated for his foreign heritage, Gully Foyle speaks of being considered a lesser citizen in his own society, having been raised in what was known as a gutter school. Despite sharing many of the same artistic influences as Ishinomori's other characters, 0010's manga appearance comes off more as silly than threatening. Maybe it's just because of the coloring or the consistency of the art, but I feel like the anime did a great job adapting this design. 0010 has the power to manipulate lightning, as well as an accelerator that's said to be more powerful than 009's. For anyone wondering why Gilmore didn't know there were more 00 cyborgs than 1 through 9, that's because presumably at the time of their escape there weren't any. Later in both the manga and anime, they explain that Black Ghost actually has a variety of robotic soldiers and cyborgs, and that the 00 line is just a designation given to their strongest cyborgs. 0010 and the rest of the Assassins were most likely cyborgs who, following the 00 rebellion, were upgraded and received the designation of 00 themselves. During this fight, we see flashbacks to Joe's life before being captured, only now we also see images of Joe's mother abandoning him on the steps of the orphanage. The relationship between Joe and his mother is an interesting one. It does pay off in a later episode of the anime, but Joe's longing for understanding as to why his mother abandoned him, at least to me, seems like what ignites the romance between him and 003. From the moment she's introduced, she's perceived as motherly. She instinctually takes care of 001, she's against fighting, she tells 0010 that being turned into a cyborg basically makes him family, and Joe's natural response to this is to protect her at all cost. Outside of the Chinese dress scene, 003 is hardly ever sexualized in the anime, and even though you can argue that's because this is a kid's show, it's also a kid's show from Japan. I think it's fitting for a show based on a 60s manga to portray its love interest as a motherly figure, as Japanese sex icon Char Aznable once said, "Lala Soon was a woman who may have become a mother to me." But that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching. 0010 completely wrecks the 00 cyborgs, and the only reason they aren't killed is because a sudden rainstorm prevents 0010 from using his electricity powers. In the manga, the battle is one long fight without a break, but the anime uses the break in the fight to resolve the conflict with 002, as well as deliver details on 009 and 003's backstories. Decade-sensitive information like Joe facing racism for being half foreigner and having to join a gang of delinquents to get by are removed, but he explains that just not having parents meant that he was the target of bullies, and him and the other kids had to form their own gang to protect themselves. However, he specifically says that he never fought back and always ran away or tricked the bullies. 003 tells him that she has a brother named Jean, but she doesn't look forward to seeing him because she was kidnapped by Black Ghost after the war in Europe, presumably the early 60s given the time when the original manga debuted. One of the strangest threads in this conversation, though, is when 003 says that even if her brother is alive, she wouldn't want to see him. In the manga, there's nothing like this that ever comes up. Of course, because there isn't a huge time gap, there's really no worry as to whether her brother would or would not be alive. But still, going to see him after being turned into a cyborg is never a conflict for 003. Granted, her brother is only shown twice in the manga, once being in that prologue chapter, but this isn't because of some sort of internal character conflict with 003, but rather that there's just no conflict there. Joe doesn't even try to change her mind, he's just like, okay, if that's what you want. When the rainstorm ends, 002 goes out on his own to fight 0010. He tells 0010 that the other cyborgs ran away, but he'd fight him one-on-one. As 0010 chases 002 through the woods, he's suddenly attacked and realizes that 002 isn't alone and that it was all a trap. Each cyborg uses their power in conjunction with the rest of their team. 002 flies into the air with 0010, while 004 blasts him, causing him to fall into the ocean. This causes his power to short like it did in the rainstorm, and 007 and 008 can attack him underwater. Then, just as it seems 0010 is defeated, the cyborgs are blown out of the water by an electrical blast. It's here where we're introduced to 0010+. 0010 Plus and 0010 Minus are twin brothers with an identical appearance and identical powers. Though in the anime, Plus's sudden arrival to the battle feels really weird. In the manga, Joe is fighting Minus, but after he manages to dodge his electricity with the help of 001, Plus jumps in to assist him. The rainstorm added to the anime makes his appearance here odd, because according to the dialogue, it was raining for a week. You'd think if they had to wait a week, they'd just say, okay, this time, we'll both attack from the start because we gotta get this over with. Hell, I'm shocked they even waited a week, because even if they can't use their electricity powers, they still have their accelerators and guns. The 0010 brothers attack the cyborgs, and the anime essentially picks up from where the manga left off. They chase Joe but cut him off, causing him to be trapped in an attack where they encircle him with electricity until it causes an explosion. When the dust clears, Plus and Minus wonder if he's actually dead or if he just disappeared somehow. But as they do, they get too close, showing that when they get too close, their powers surge. 009 wakes up at a nearby power plant where 001 reveals that he teleported him. Teleportation is a power he rarely uses because it uses so much energy and only works on unconscious objects. Since Joe passed out right before the explosion, 001 was able to move him away. At this point though, Joe has figured out their weakness, and when the brothers arrive at the power plant, Joe uses his accelerator to run in a bunch of random directions. The brothers keep trying to cut him off, but Joe uses this to trap them, causing the brothers to run into each other. And when they collide, their power surges, causing a short that actually kills them. The scene is pretty much perfectly adapted from the manga, with the exception of the location. In the manga, Joe defeats them in the same rocky terrain that every manga fight takes place in, so you don't have to draw backgrounds. The anime moved it over to a nearby power plant, which allowed for more interesting fight choreography, as well as a more grandiose but also somber ending.
009
0010 doesn't appear in too many other adaptations outside of the 1967 Toei film, where he has a complete redesign and is even called 0011. But at least they do die the same way. Also, a positive charge touching a negative charge doesn't short a circuit. I do have a complaint though, and this extends to the manga as well. After Plus and Minus died, Joe says how cruel it is that even though they were brothers, they couldn't touch. I think this line would have had more power to it if we got to see the brothers actually act like they were remotely human. There's a scene where they come close to touching and almost short each other, but just jump apart and say that was close. I think this was a missed opportunity to have them genuinely argue like real brothers. The following episode opens with an adaptation of 004's backstory as seen in one of the prologue chapters. In it, 004 is smuggling his wife Hilda out of East Germany, but they're caught at the border, forcing them to flee. As 004 tries to escape, his truck crashes and his wife is killed. When 004 wakes up, he reveals that he keeps his wedding ring on a necklace, which he hides under his scarf. This ring isn't in the manga, and I'm surprised it made it so far. Like, you'd think Black Ghost would have confiscated that. Following the fight with 0010, the cyborgs are still at Dr. Kozumi's, and because Black Ghost now knows the location of the cyborgs, they're alternating patrol duty. This is probably my largest criticism with this adaptation of the arc. There seems to be a huge lack of urgency after 0010's attack. The manga also has this issue, but it's at a later point. Following the fight with 0010, the very next panel is 0011 scooping up Plus and Minus's remains, walking over to Kozumi's house, and fucking leveling it to the ground. In the anime, 003 detects an enemy approaching, and they go out to find 0011. 0011 is a man whose body was taken away from him, and had his brain placed in the body of a robot spider, which is fucking cool. If he can kill the cyborg traitors, Black Ghost has agreed to return his body. The anime even gives us a reason as to why he wants his body back so badly. 0011 had a family, including a wife and a daughter. Even though I complained about how 0010 came off as inhuman, I think the polar shift from the sheer sadistic 0010 to the tragic and relatable 0011 works to keep the story from feeling repetitive and reveals more about the savage nature of the Black Ghost. 0011 has guns that emerge from the openings that surround his armored body. These guns can shoot artillery and a white goo that traps the cyborgs like flypaper. Although I used the Japanese subtitled version for context of scenes in my breakdowns, there's something about the dub that I think is worth mentioning here, and that is Joe's voice. When Sony Pictures dubbed 009, they did so very hastily. Voice actor Joshua Seth, known for characters like Tai from Digimon and Tetsuo from Akira, was chosen for the role of Joe Shimamura. However, at the time, Joshua Seth was considering stepping down from voice acting, and so he was recast with voice actor Derek Stephen Prince. Prince apparently dubbed 12 episodes of the show, however, when it was shown to the higher-ups at Sony, they disliked it. So much so that they actually got Joshua Seth to come back on and do the role, which included redubbing Prince's episodes. However, these were done very quickly as the show was already set up to air on Toonami. I guess the episodes weren't redubbed in order because Tears of Steel and Satan of the Deep still have Derek Stephen Prince's voice role in the final version.
I was an orphan. I was raised by a priest. In the church, there were a lot of other kids like me. When we weren't in school, we were on our own in the town, and we had to use our wits to survive, and some days it was tough.
I felt he could become one of us, but when his twin came along, he reinforced the evil conditioning, and it was hopeless. We should keep that in mind. It's hard to turn evil to good. Maybe we shouldn't even try.
The cyborgs realize that 0011's armor is stronger than any of their own weapons, but 004 has an idea: to fire into one of the eyelets that surround its body when they open up. This works, effectively disabling the machine, but when it comes time to land the killing blow, 004 hesitates. In that moment of hesitation, 0011 fires a missile into the air as the cliff he's perched on crumbles, dropping him into the ocean. The missile turns out not to be a ballistic missile, but a cloud seeding missile. Cloud seeding is a process where silver iodide is injected into clouds to promote rainfall. But not only does it seed the cloud to spur rain, but the rain also contains a deadly poison that affects anyone it falls on. In this episode, the 0011 fight is broken into 2 stages, similar to how the 0010 fight was broken into 2 stages separated by the Rainstorm, except in this instance, the stage 2 is totally original. In the manga, Joe gets the idea to shoot the opening, and it's when he does that 0011 fires the poison missile as a parting shot. 009 and 002 are poisoned, so they say, we have to develop an antidote. And then the next page, they've developed an antidote, and the day is saved. It feels like Ishinomori was working out the story, but as he got further and further along, he realized he was reaching his page count, and then finally just decided to end it there. The anime does expand on the story. 0011 sits at the bottom of the sea, where he demands that Black Ghost free him, and this is where the skull takes control. After this, his eyelids turn red, and he no longer has control over his own body. 004 and 009 have a discussion about how 0010 showed them how difficult it is to turn evil to good, but 004 remains optimistic and says he feels it's important to cling to his humanity, otherwise he'd just be a robot man. And that's his exact phrasing. Throughout the series, 004 has to deal with the fact that of all the 00 cyborgs, his body was the most heavily modified. He doesn't give off any body heat, and he has to wear a glove of artificial skin whenever he needs to give a fingerprint. Although his situation isn't as extreme as 0011, 004 is the only member of the team who can relate to his plight. When the other cyborgs eventually return to their lives, all of them use their power to their advantage. 002 outright tells local kids he's a superhero, 006 uses his fire to cook food, 005 uses his super strength to move heavy building equipment and steel beams, 007, who was a failed actor, can now shapeshift into any character he wants to be, but 004 was a truck driver. I think the only reason Ishinomori didn't touch on this connection himself in the manga is that it was so early on that he really hadn't developed the cyborgs' personalities enough yet. Hindsight does a lot for the 2001 anime, but it still manages to leave me wishing they'd done more. 0011 returns, now fully controlled by Black Ghost. With his body weakening from the poison, 004 tries to reach out to the humanity inside him. Not to focus too much on the dub, but I was confused when I had only seen the English version of this episode, because in the dub, 0011 still seems to have a personality.
You cyborgs are the traitors, and it's time to shut you up! Family man, your history!
In Japanese, all he says is, kill, kill, destroy the cyborg traitors, which makes it clear that his humanity is gone. Thus, when Albert destroys him, it's clear we're only seeing a machine being destroyed. 0011 doesn't appear in any other adaptations per se, but his design and character conflict were used for the character Kramer in the 79 adaptation. Kramer was a mountaineer who once led 007 and his friend Henry Brown into the mountains, only for Henry to fall in a tragic accident. Henry is brought back as a cyborg by Black Ghost, and to get revenge on 007, he puts Kramer's brain in a robot spider, ordering him to kill the 00 cyborgs in order to get his body back. Weirdly enough, despite having the hindsight I mentioned earlier, the writers chose to make 007 the character that has a connection here, as opposed to 004. Kramer has the same design and same powers as 0011, but in the end, the 00 cyborgs are actually able to retrieve his brain and his naked body, and then put him back together, unlike in the 2001 anime where he flies into the air like Gamera and explodes. My issue with this ending is that it feels like thematically the proper conclusion would have been for 004 to reach through to 0011, if only just for a moment. In that moment, in fear of losing his humanity, 0011 would decide to self-destruct, and although it would kill him, in a sense, this sacrifice would actually free him from the robotic shell that Black Ghost forced upon him. The issue with that is that later on, Joe has a connection with 0013, and during their fight, Joe reaches through the evil conditioning, resulting in 0013 sacrificing himself. However, this would have been redundant if 0011 had done the same earlier. But since 0013 is a much more important character, to the extent of even appearing in the series' original ending sequence, it makes sense why they'd withhold that character arc from 0011.